Okay, so again, thank you guys for joining us today. With me, Bradley from ServiceNow, and today what we are going to do is mainly walk you through the integration of Defender for IoT and ServiceNow. But before we start, we want your help with deciding which one will be the next OT and ICS connectors that we will bring into Microsoft Sentinel. What you will see today is our ability to bring OT context and visibility into ServiceNow, but we have a similar tracks of bringing the same context into Microsoft security products. And first of all, Microsoft Sentinel. So please, in your free time, if you can help us get into this server link and help us prioritize the OT connectors that you would like or want to see in Microsoft Sentinel first. So let's talk a little bit about the problem itself and why there is a huge need and a growing demand for IT and OT security. So first of all, what we see in the market is that the number of unmanaged devices is growing and increasing year by year. And actually, the expectation are that at some point, the number of OT or IoT devices that you have in your organization will exceed the number of IT devices. So the problem is just getting bigger and bigger, and this is obviously also impacting your entire attack surface, which much more connected IoT and OT devices gets into your network, right? This is in addition to few interesting facts. So I'm not going to highlight all of the facts here. I just want to highlight some of them. So 31% of organizations today are slowing or limiting their investment in IoT and OT projects, specifically due to security concerns, right? They are thinking that the deployment of IoT and OT devices in the organizations is bringing them into a point of an unsecure network. And this is also backed up with another two points in the survey. 70% of the organizations today, 70 and 71, think that they are lacking a complete IoT and OT inventory and have a very low confidence that IoT or OT devices are secured. So how can you help your organization reduce those concerns, uplift the confidence, and actually ultimately reduce the risk for the organization? One of the options or ways that we offer organizations today is by leveraging the integration of Defender for IoT and ServiceNow. So Defender for IoT, for those of you who are new to Defender for IoT, is a network detection and response solution for OT and IoT systems or networks that is connected via a span port to your on-premise or local network and sniffing all of the network packets to do a security analysis on them. And first of all, discover all of your IoT and OT assets. Second of all, give you continuous monitoring for those assets. And third of all, give you risk and vulnerability management for those assets. Combined with ServiceNow, we can bring the same context, the same visibility that Defender for IoT has into ServiceNow CMDB and into ServiceNow Vulnerability Response modules in a way that unify and converges both CMDB inventory, right, and both vulnerability management for all of your IoT, OT, and IoT initiatives, right? So this gives you all of the tools you need to manage workflows for security remediation inside ServiceNow by leveraging the information coming from and discovered from Defender for IoT. Getting into the exact data types that we are sending into ServiceNow. So first of all, it's on the level of the inventory, right? We are discovering all of the unmanaged devices in the OT or IoT network. We store them inside Defender for IoT, and then we are syncing the same inventory of Defender for IoT into ServiceNow CMDB. This includes all of the attributes discovered by Defender for IoT for physical assets. It might be a MAC or IP address, the serial number of the device, the firmware, details around network connections. So which device in your network is communicating with which device? What is the details of this connection? Means which protocol, which port, and so on. What is the relationships between control system and modules? So some of the devices might have a backplane architecture with racks and slots. This is a type of information Defender for IoT can discover, and it is also shared with ServiceNow. Obviously, what is the type of the device? If it's a PLC, HMI, engineering workstation, a server, historian, or any other device type that you have on the OT floor. What is the Purdue layer, and so on and so on. So basically, all of the information discovered and analyzed by Defender for IoT is shared and synced with ServiceNow CMDB. The second data type that we are sharing with ServiceNow is vulnerabilities, right? So Defender for IoT, since it knows to discover all of the details for your physical assets, if it's the OS that is running on the asset, the version of the OS distribution, same goes for firmware version, firmware model, and so on. We can cross it with lots of CVEs databases and give you a list of vulnerabilities currently active on your OS or hardware deployed on your assets, right? So we also share this information with ServiceNow, and inside ServiceNow, you can actually manage the workflows to remediate or take actions on those kinds of vulnerabilities. Roddy?
Yeah, thanks, Liran. So as Liran was highlighting, these integrations enable you to have the same view within ServiceNow that you can get within the Defender product as well. We're going to add the context of the production process. So similar to the way that on the IT side, ServiceNow helps our customers understand how a database server supports an e-commerce website, for example. We can help you understand the context of how your production process is being automated by the OT layer, by your industrial control systems. Why is that important? Well, it's important if you're going to need to take a remediation action. You need to understand which production line is that OT asset automated. Or if you have the same device, let's say it's a PLC from Rockwell, on multiple lines, you may assign a different criticality, business criticality, to a specific production line, which means the priority given to remediating one vulnerable item on one production line could be much higher. And you may want to focus on that one and prioritize that ahead. So having this context within ServiceNow will enable you to make those types of decisions. And then finally, on the next slide, we'll talk about the vulnerability response workflow. So once we've identified from Defender that, hey, this particular OT asset has this vulnerability, and here's all of the CVE detail, then you can take the risk calculation that you've determined based on your organization's profile and work those remediations through a workflow so that you can remediate them. This is a high-level workflow that enables you to make decisions based on the risk. You can also, as you kind of work through this workflow here, you can add additional context. You can add the ability to understand the threat intel if you have a feed for that. And then finally, be able to make a decision and schedule at the appropriate time when you can coordinate a change to the environment, which in an industrial environment, that can be a challenge. Obviously, you can't make those changes when the process is running. What we'll do after that is done and the remediation is complete, we'll check back with Defender to make sure that that remediation is in fact in place, and then we can confirm that and close out that vulnerable item. So that'll take that ticket, if you will, through the workflow from the fact that I identified it all the way through to it is now closed and remediated. So what we'll do now is I'll take you through a demo of what this looks like in the platform. Great. So I'm starting here in the Defender CM, and in this demo, I've got two environments, one running in Tukwila, Washington, and one running in Hyderabad. So what we have is our three sensors deployed, right? So we've got two up in the Hyderabad facility, and two in Tukwila and one in Hyderabad. When we bring these into ServiceNow, we create the record and then allow you to determine whether or not that sensor is running on an OT network. Like in Hyderabad, we've got a particular manufacturing site. It could be just an IT data center, and knowing which site the sensor is allows you to assign any of the OT assets that are detected by that sensor to the right site and to the right users. So that enables you, once you get into the workspace, to be able to say, this user really only needs to be able to see the assets in London or Hyderabad, or maybe they have access to all three, as this user does in this case. That enables you to be able to keep the asset information at the right level and provide your users with the experience that they're expecting. Because in OT, it's very local management concept. Obviously, within ServiceNow, you can look at things at an enterprise level as well. For the purpose of this demo, we'll take a look at what it looks like at a site level. So for this engineer that comes in to London, we're going to see that we've got 3 new OT assets that have been discovered in the last 7 days. That may be of interest. You may not be expecting them, or you may be, and you need to put them through a workflow to fully onboard them. If there's anything that's been on the network but hasn't been seen communicating on the network, we'll highlight that here as well. Similarly, if any new vulnerabilities have been detected within the last 7 days, those will show up, and then any other workflow tasks associated with this user at the site can be displayed to the user. Down here, we're summarizing what we're getting from Defender and then combining that with your risk profile to say, I'm going to calculate my risk on these, and we can see that there are a few that we are going to consider to be critical, and we may want to focus on those. You can also see sort of the status of how these vulnerable items are moving through the workflow, all the way from I've got a new one, it's open, or I'm awaiting implementation, or finally it's resolved, I'm just waiting to confirm that it has been closed. And then as we scroll down, we'll see more detail, some of the summary of the OT assets that have been detected by Defender for IoT, where they sit in the environment in terms of the Purdue level. What are the functions of those assets in terms of their role? And then, of course, the different vendors and the criticality that you can assign to each of those assets. So that gives you a view of what you can see in terms of the asset summary. Now we're going to slide into what is the production process for a site. And we're going to look at the Tukwila site here as an example. So in Tukwila, we're making candy and we're packaging it up. We're actually making our own packages, and then we're getting those ready to ship out so that people can enjoy their candy. What we're going to see here within this particular site is we're going to have an issue in the box cutting area. We're going to take a look at how this production process model will help you understand the context. So first of all, we'll notice that the box cutter is getting material from the box printer. And then downstream from that, the boxes are getting folded. And if you continue to go downstream from that, you would notice that you're going to be packing and then palletizing those boxes. So within this specific work cell, we've got one OT control system with a bunch of control modules managing this box cutting machine. And we'll notice that there are 22 vulnerable items that have been detected by Defender. Of those, vulnerable items. A few of them are high. Many of them have been, the highs have all been investigated, and 4 of them are actually awaiting implementation, and meaning there's a remediation that can be taken here, and we're just waiting for this opportunity to do this remediation. So what we'll do is we'll take these items that are ready for remediation. We'll go ahead and schedule a task for the user. So we can come in and say we're going to assign that to the local engineer. And then we know that this line is going to be down. It's not going to be down until the 4th of July weekend here. So we're going to schedule that for Sunday. And once we have that scheduled, it will now show up as a remediation task on that user's dashboard. So when we go back and we take a look at the remediation task, now we know we've got one that is a high risk rating with 4 vulnerable items that need to be remediated here in this area. So once that remediation action is taken, we can mark this task as remediated, and then the vulnerabilities will be automatically closed once it's detected that they've actually been remediated. So hopefully that gives you a sense of how you can understand how to work through the remediation. One thing that I wanted to show was when you're looking at a particular OT asset, you may want to understand the context, right? So this is what Liran was talking about earlier, and I'm going to open this dependency view for this asset. So here we can see the control system that's in focus here, and we can see that it has a number of issues related to it. There's actually an open incident ticket against this control system. Apparently this PLC needs an upgrade. We've got a couple of the vulnerable items here that we were just looking at on the other screen. So we have that context, and we know that we've got these control modules that are owned by this particular control system. We also understand that it's communicating with this OT system and this one, which looks like it also has a vulnerability associated with it, or quite a few. So given that you want to understand the context, you can see who's talking to who. You can understand, the impact. If you're taking this down, you're going to lose communication with this device, as well as you can understand the context. This is the box cutting area that we were just talking about. So we can see that within this map, understanding where the issue might be. So that concludes the demo. I think I'll hand it back over to Liran for the wrap up.
Thank you, Bradley. So wrapping up, guys, you can go into ServiceNow store and view Service Graph Connector integration with Microsoft Defender for IoT. Service Graph Connector is the module that will allow the integration between Microsoft Defender for IoT inventory and ServiceNow's OT CMDB. You can do the same for vulnerability response integration with Microsoft Defender for IoT. This module, once deployed on ServiceNow, will allow the integration for vulnerabilities discovered by Microsoft Defender for IoT and ServiceNow. And the rest of the links here in this page is for you to get more details about Microsoft Defender for IoT and a bunch of study cases about securing IoT and OT networks. I hope you enjoyed our short webinar today and learned more about Defender for IoT and ServiceNow. And for any feedback or questions that you may have, feel free to use our community chat for that. We will be more than happy to support you along the way and help you utilize the 2 products to your benefit.
Great, thank you. We do have a few questions that we'd like to iterate. The first one is, how are you identifying new devices on the OT network? Assume you have RSpan running on managed switches back to an agent for ServiceNow OT.
So basically, how the sensor of Defender for IoT is working is that, first of all, it builds a baseline of your network. Once it is first deployed, we are sniffing all of the packets in the network. We identify what you see in the network in terms of what assets are in the network, which protocols are used in the network, and all kinds of metadata of the network itself. For example, the VLANs, distribution, subnets, bandwidth, and so on. Once the sensor is then turned into a production mode or operational mode, after this learning period of building a baseline, every new device that we see on the network itself, every new IP, new MAC, or any other identification that we consider an identification of a new device that is not correlated with what we saw on the baseline from the first place, will be treated in Defender for IoT as a new device in the system. And this is how we mostly recognize new devices.
Great, thank you. The next question we have is, how do Microsoft and ServiceNow detect and handle real-time events, e.g. an intruder manipulating a PLC?
So for now, the integration of Microsoft Defender for IoT and ServiceNow is not syncing alerts and threats between Defender for IoT and ServiceNow. This is a roadmap item. In order to respond to such an attack, this will have to be managed within Defender for IoT currently, or within any of the other SIEMs that Defender for IoT is currently connected to. In the future, we want to share also alerts between Defender for IoT and ServiceNow. For now, there are integration. Maybe Bradley can elaborate on that. There are integration of ServiceNow with other SIEMs like Splunk or Sentinel or IBM QRadar. So eventually, the alerts and threats can also come from there into ServiceNow.
Sure, I could chat about that. It looks like maybe the view on the screen is just of me here, so I'm not sure on the webinar. But anyway, so yes, so the alerts that can come in from a Defender can be represented in the security incident response application within ServiceNow, and then triaged appropriately. So we our platform in that sense can function as a SOAR, as customers would want to be able to assign those tickets to investigate, take the appropriate containment or eradication actions, etc. So that's something that can be configured. Just to clarify the point there, we're on the roadmap building the integration, so it's just install it, turn it on, and the events will flow. That's something that can certainly be configured today. Both of our platforms are highly configurable. We're going to make that a lot easier in the near future.
Great, thank you. The next one we have is, how can we protect the privileged OT info, example, IP addresses, workflows, etc., in ServiceNow?
Right, so this is a common question that we get. In the security profile for ServiceNow, if you have more detailed questions, we'd be happy to walk through the general security posture of the ServiceNow cloud environment. And if you have additional requirements, there's additional environments that are, for example, FedRAMP certified. In addition to that, there are other ways that you can handle your IP and MAC addresses. I think the best answer to the question is, understanding what the data is and taking the appropriate policies in place to secure that information within your environment to the right users, right? So that's something that our product enables you to do, is to limit who has access to the OT environment data as a part of the CMDB. So it is one CMDB, but for those assets that are designated as operational technology, you can apply additional access controls to reduce the visibility of those assets to the right users.
Great, thank you. Our next question is the ServiceNow SecOps module integrated for SOAR operations?
I'm not sure integrated with, I'm assuming maybe that question is similar to the one we just answered, in terms of integrating with either directly with Defender or with Sentinel. These are things, the Sentinel integration exists on the store today. So those are things that ServiceNow and Microsoft are already doing. What we're talking about here today is adding the capability of the integration with Defender for IoT to send the alerts natively to ServiceNow. You could already send those to Sentinel, and then from Sentinel create incidents in ServiceNow. That's possible today.
Great, thank you. That's all the questions we have for today. So I'd like to thank Liran and Bradley for being our guests today and for an excellent presentation. And thank you to the rest of the team who helped answer questions. At the same time, I would like to remind the listeners that the best way to ensure you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements is to visit our landing page at aka.ms/securitycommunity. And while there, you'll find easy ways to navigate and find the resources and learning content relevant to our security products and their communities. A good start would be browsing our bite-sized product videos, ninja trainings, recordings of past webinars, GitHub communities, and more. We love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars. Please take a minute submitting your webinar feedback at aka.ms/security webinar feedback. Thank you and see you next time.